I look forward to covering E3. I have a video about how Call of Duty has lost its soul. It's going to be a follow-up to Exclusive Ace's video that he did about Call of Duty losing its soul. I did a 16-minute tangent. That'll be out soon. But for this video, I wanted to talk about meta abuse or meta rejectors, essentially is the only term I can think for them. We're going to be talking about just, the overpowered guns and strategies and things that we see in FPS games that just annoy the hell out of us. So, here's the hot take of this video. I don't think that most people that want to avoid doing meta tactics are in some way better, more righteous, more moral, more sportsmanlike than anybody else. I think the people that religiously cry about meta abuse in video games, religiously cry about people using good, solid loadouts, or even just being tryhards in general, those people that complain about that are just not very good at the game and they want to have a reason for it. They want to be the guy that goes into the match deciding to not do a certain tactic, to not use a certain gun, so that when they fail, it's not as embarrassing. If you are using meta tactics and meta weapons and failing, that would show poorly on you. But if you decide to reject the teachings of the meta and decide to pursue your own strategies, then you can say, well, yeah, that's what happens when you don't abuse the meta. I guess I'm just a little disenfranchised at the moment. And I know this pretty confidently because of myself and other people I've played with over the years. So talking about other people first before I embarrass myself, I knew this person. His name was something or other. I don't remember. I think he went by Dakota or something like that, but that wasn't his real name. I'm not sure. He had a serious issue in Halo. He was the Halo guy, and he actually tried to impress my girlfriend a lot when we used to play a lot of Xbox together. He was the Halo guy, and she was into Halo, and I wasn't playing a lot of Halo. I played Halo 3 and stuff, but mostly private matches. I purchased Halo 4 back then just to get better than him, just to impress my girlfriend. When you're 15, you do what you gotta do. I practiced on Halo 4 for over a month. I would play the campaign, I would play Spartan Ops, I'd play multiplayer, and I would just try to get better. I watched tips and tricks videos, and it eventually clicked in my head that the thing that I had been missing about Halo throughout my entire life, despite playing it since I was 8 years old, is that it's a game of combinations. I start learning this, right? I start learning how to two-tap and melee. I start learning how to stick people in close range. I start really getting good at noob comboing, which is easy to do. It's why it's called noob comboing. When I eventually private matched that Dakota person I mentioned earlier, he was so distraught that I was good at Halo, despite usually just being a Call of Duty tard. He was so annoyed that I was good. He was so annoyed that I could beat him in 1v1s, he started to come up with his own rules. And this, we were all a little bit younger. I think I was turning 16, he was turning 15, or he was turning 16 at the same time. I don't really remember. He was around my age, a little bit younger than he is now, obviously. So the cringe is to be expected. I mean, hell, I was practicing Halo to get a girl's attention, so life was different. Either way, he came into a party one day and started talking about how to be a good sportsman, how to be a good Spartan. I'm not even kidding. And he was talking about how he doesn't want to shoot people in the back anymore. He might just warning shot at them so that they have a chance to turn around and fight him, because assassinating people, beating them down, shooting them when they're not looking is basically cheating. He started creating his own rules for the game. And this wasn't my opinion that he did this because of me kicking his ass. Other people told me that it wasn't until I kicked his ass that he decided this. Apparently after I would kick his ass and after the play session would be over and I'd top him in leaderboards and I'd beat him in 1v1s and private matches, he would then rant to other people about how shitty my tactics were. Despite being new at Halo, he didn't like that I would win. Anything I did to win, whether it was a noob combo or a frag grenade or using a jetpack or using the thruster pack, whatever it was not sportsmanlike to him. Even though when we would do 1v1s, he resorted to sprinting at me at max speed and sticking me with a plasma grenade at point blank range, and that was his entire goal. So when I switched to the thruster pack and countered that, or used the hard light shield to counter that, he was very upset. If you guys don't know what those things are, you might not be Halo players or Halo 4 players, and that's fine, don't worry. Basically, I would counter him and he'd be pissy. And I don't know why shooting somebody in the back is not sportsmanlike, but running up to them and getting an easy plasma grenade stick in point blank range was. It wasn't about being sportsmanly. He wanted to have the moral high ground, so anything I did was essentially cheating and didn't matter. I've talked about a similar thing on this channel recently, so hopefully you guys sort of are getting the context of this discussion. So now I'll talk about myself. Sometimes when I livestream Modern Warfare, you guys will notice my livestream titles here on YouTube will say something like trying and maybe failing, or trying to be bad at Modern Warfare, sort of as a joke, because it takes some pressure off of me. I'll use non-meta weapons or a weird loadout, so it takes pressure off of me. So if you guys see me fail using a weird off-meta loadout, you guys can think, oh, Boom's trying a difficult loadout, not Boom's bad at the game. If I went into Modern Warfare and used a meta loadout, something that the best players would use, an esports player would use, a Warzone streamer would use to win a match, if I went in and used a loadout like that, and tried my hardest and did slide canceling and really got my movement down, and I failed, that would be more embarrassing than, hey guys, I'm gonna put a sniper scope on a short-barreled Scar, let's see how we do. Then it's like, oh, okay, Boom's goofing around, and oh, he's not doing well, but of course he's not doing well. He's not participating in the meta of the game. It takes stress off of me. I don't like failing in front of people, and I'm trying to work on that because fuck, it's a video game for God's sake. But isn't that an interesting topic though? Just what I've said so far. I think this is fascinating. To me, it's fascinating. It's the idea that, well, I won't participate in this act, therefore, any failings in my life, any failings in this game, any failings of my own, aren't really necessarily my own. Everything you do is a non-starter. It is a bad liftoff point because you've decided to involve yourself with X, Y, or Z. You only win because you use good weapons. You only win because you use meta tactics. You only win because you camp. You only win because you quickscope. You only win because you noob combo. You only win because X, Y, and Z. I struggle with the concept of morality, and my philosophy on good and evil is sort of evolving as I get older, and it's kind of fun. And one of the things I've really started to think about is that you're not moral because you avoid something if you're not capable of doing it. So if you tell me, I don't fight, I'm a pacifist, but you're unable to fight, you're weak, you're out of shape, you couldn't throw a punch if your life was depending on it, and you're gonna tell me that you're a pacifist and violence makes other people lesser in any context? You're kidding yourself. I would never use a gun. You don't know how to use a gun. I would never drink. You're not old enough to drink. I used to think I was morally superior because I was never going to do drugs or drink alcohol. Now, I'm still kind of against drugs, but I realized alcohol is only a demon if you don't tame it. I think when you kill something, it's because it's frightening or dangerous to you. To tame something is to add another tool to your toolbox. If you're capable of handling your liquor or your weed, if you're capable of handling yourself in a fight, if you're capable of defending yourself honorably for the right reasons, then you can tell me what you do and don't do because of your morality. Otherwise, you're just ineffectual. It's not that you would never do something, it's that you're too scared to do something. Is it morality if it's simply based in fear? I don't use meta loadouts. If you did, you still wouldn't be good. You've spent so much time rejecting skill and resenting the skill gap and resenting good players, like I do even sometimes, especially if I'm rusty. I hate fighting a sweaty Magoo when I'm you just haven't played in 2 weeks and I'm just trying to warm my aim back up and I'm fighting somebody who's like snorted G Fuel and is slide canceling around the map with a shotgun and an MP5. I have trouble with that. But I'm not better than him because I'm doing worse. What a weird fucking mentality to have. Like, oh, thank God you don't use meta loadouts because your aim isn't very good. And even the most meta loadout in Call of Duty doesn't work if you don't have map knowledge and awareness and good aim. Like, there's still skill there even if you're sort of optimizing your loadout. Now, at the same time, to end this video, I want to call out meta slaves to some degree here, because I do think part of the fun in a video game is experiencing new things. And those of you that I fight in Modern Warfare Cold War that have one gun, gold, and it's a meta, very statistically powerful weapon, and that's all you use and abuse all the time, one, I think you're missing out on the game, and two, I think you're not as fun to play against. You're not as interesting to play against. And people, what they really don't like, a lot of the times, what they're complaining about is monotony. The feeling of fighting the same player with a different name. Because for every MP5 user in Modern Warfare slide canceling around with a 725 secondary or something like that, there's somebody else doing the exact same thing. Someone else has that exact same meta loadout that you're using, that same perk setup, that same specialist setup that you're using. And it's annoying to feel like you're fighting the same person every time. And that is frustrating, and I do think that's partly on the developers, and that's also partly on you. I feel like you should try to be a little creative. And also, when you're creative and you're not playing with the most optimal loadout, sometimes it can actually improve your skill. You can get better because you have to work a little harder than somebody else. Here's something you can try if you haven't in a while. Use a weapon with absolutely 0 attachments. Just use a gun in Call of Duty with 0 attachments. Try to do well, try to get streaks with that weapon. And one of the things you might notice is that you have to try a little harder and you have less expectations on yourself, and you have to think through situations a bit more. You don't have 60 rounds, you don't have a suppressor, you don't have a nice optic, you don't have better recoil control. You have to fire that thing naked, and it's not as easy. One of the things I did recently hear about, Jordan Peterson was on a podcast and he was talking about how the story of Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table was really interesting to him because when they set out to go find the Holy Grail, they looked into the forest and each one went to the part of the forest that was darkest to them. That's a cool concept. It's the idea that this is the thing in my gameplay that scares me. That's where you go. Go deal with that. If you are a slave to the MP5, and you have to be honest with yourself, are you a slave to the MP5? Are you a slave to the M4? Are you a slave to these certain weapons and tactics? And can you not fight around them? Can you not deal with campers? Can you not deal with rushers? Can you not play objective game modes or one life game modes? Maybe that's where you have to dive into. If you find yourself getting defensive and resentful about things that you don't need to be defensive and resentful about, you need to evaluate that. If anything ever gives you guilt, resentment, anger, ask yourself why. And I'll see you when I see you guys. Goodbye. So after finishing the entire video, I realized I've already used this Halo 3 gameplay before.
Yay!